Bob, I'm sorry. We'll get back to sports.
No, that's fine. I love this topic. I once wrote a column in 1993, the year in question, because I had seen all 30 of the primary nominees, and I wrote a column previewing the Oscars, giving my opinion, and so on and so forth. That was my hot movie-going peak. I'm now in a major recession. I haven't even seen 10. I think I just hit the 10th movie this year. I'm very anal. I keep track. But that year I saw, the next year I saw 116 movies in 1994. And that was my peak. And that's when I had more time on my hands.
Best sports movie?
Oh, it's the best sports movie. I think Hoosiers for me. For me, I loved Hoosiers. I'm a basketball guy. I loved the whole premise. And I remember at the time that came out, Jerry Seasting was playing for the Celtics, and he's from Martindale. Martinsville. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And he said that caravan picture of the aerial shot of the caravan, he said, that is the gospel truth, he said. And he swore for the essential authenticity of the flavor of the movie. Obviously, there's cinematic license taken in lots of places in the movie, as there are in all movies. But I love that one the most. And Bull Durham. Because there were so many things that did ring true. Ron Shelton does know baseball, played baseball. My favorite scene there being when they flooded the field to get a day off. Yeah. Because I had been around. I wrote a book on minor league baseball. My first book was. I know the mentality of minor league baseball, and that rang very true.
The formal introduction, Bob Ryan, Boston Globe, also ESPN. The book is Scribe. And what made you write the book?
I was asked to. Now, here's what happened. I'm not going to be disingenuous and suggest that during the course of my career, as any writer with an ego and this hint of pomposity, would react, that I thought that maybe I would have a story to tell. But I talked myself out of it. I really was spooked out of it because I just thought that there's better people than me that have written books that haven't really had traction or that didn't even do it. I'm flattering myself. Forget about it. 4 years ago, seriously. And I mean, I know some people will say he's kidding. He's not. No, I mean it. I talked myself out of it. Then I was approached by an agent named Andrew Blauner, a wonderful agent. He's not just a sports agent. He's a serious guy agent, a serious agent, who had gone to Brown University during the Bird era and read me and liked me and so on. And he urged me to do this. And I said, okay, but I need to wait till I retire officially from the Globe, which I'm planning to do after the London Olympics. Then we can talk. I'll have time. And I did, and we talked. We got a proposal. And then my stroke of good fortune was that he sold the book to George Gibson of Bloomsbury in New York. George Gibson, with whom I had worked 25 years previously on a Celtics book in another time and place, and with whom I had had no contact in the ensuing years, but remained, I'd like to say, a fan of mine. And he took the book, and they have run with it. I mean, he has run with it, and I'm getting a chance to. I say he's robbed me, Dan, of the great author's lament that 99.9% of all authors not named King, Gresham, et cetera, have. They didn't promote my book. Well, they robbed me of the lament. They have really given me an opportunity to let the world know that such a book is out there.
How big a sports fan is Stephen King?
He's a major Red Sox fan. I mean, I assume by extension, is he riveted? Is he watching the Orioles and A's? Is he watching Giants, Cardinals? I don't know. I suspect that he is, but we know his devotion. He wrote one of the many people that jumped on the bandwagon. I mean, he's always been. That's not fair to say. He got in the mix writing a book after '04 about the Red Sox winning. He's a very sincere Red Sox fan, and he was a big Little League booster in his town in Maine. Sincere baseball guy.
He's Bob Ryan. The book is Scribe, joining us in the man cave here. We met, I remember, you don't, but this was Houston Rockets, Boston Celtics at the Garden. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing Bob Ryan, and I thought, Bob Ryan and Peter Vecsey, that was the NBA.
Oh, yeah, Vecsey.
And so did you get along with Peter Vecsey?
We got along. We were interesting, almost like little rival empires, His MO was a little different than mine. He was really plugged in, and he was more caustic than I. I mean, he really liked, sticking the knife in. He loved making up nicknames. He had great nicknames. He had great imagination. Oh, Peter was wonderful. He was a must-read. I read Peter Vecsey, but he was a problem for me because he did throw some stuff out there that made me have to react to it. You know what I mean? I mean, he liked to throw a lot of stuff against the wall, and maybe occasionally it would stick. And there's no question. Trade rumors and all that stuff. And then I would be hearing from the people, well, what Vecsey says this, Vecsey says that.
So something about the Celtics that you then had to go to the Celtics and ask
he
questions.
He loved Larry. He nicknamed Larry Legend. He did it, okay? And he called him Larry Legend, and he used that all the time. Oh, as he nicknamed so many people. No, Peter Vecsey was a colossus in his time covering the NBA. In fact, I mean, coming with the Forum in New York, And they allowed him all the latitude he wanted to travel, do whatever he needed. No, Peter Vecsey, and he was a 12-month-a-year guy. He barely took a week off. I mean, he was something.
But to go to the Garden back then in the early 80s, and you could, imagine if you were building a floor and said you got to play on that floor. Like the parquet was embarrassing, but it was brilliantly embarrassing and flawed. But it was such a home-courted, literally.
It was originally the original floor, and it was replaced at some point, all right, during the Bird era, I think. But the original floor was made up of used lumber. And that's why it's in that shape, that parquet shape. It was, in fact, made up of used lumber back in 46 when the league came into being. And the Celtics are a charter member of the Boston BAA, the Basketball Association of America, forerunner of the NBA. Yeah, and there was the myths, and of course myths grow. And there were dead spots. And supposedly in the Cousy era, and maybe they knew where to steer people into the dead spots.
They
and all
trap
that.
them there.
Yeah, and it didn't, but the myth grows. It's just like the myth about Auerbach and, having cold showers and or too much heat in the locker room. They didn't control the guard. They were tenants. But Red loved. It's just like a spitball pitcher. You want to plant the seed. Gilbert Perry. You want to plant the seed in their mind that I do throw a spitball. Even I may or may not throw a spitball. And Red loved the idea that people thought that he could control the elements at the Garden. But in fact, here's one he could: towels. They could control nightly towels. How many towels are available in the So maybe can you see? You mentioned Elijah Wan and Ralph. Can you see him sharing a towel after the shower? Okay,
But I remember going in when Magic hits the little baby hook and going into that the Lakers locker room. High school locker rooms were nicer equipped.
Well, the building was built in 46, and until
they never upgraded.
No, very so. The Celtics room that I inherited and I started covering was, in fact, better than the one that Cousy and Heinsohn and Russell played. And I know where they had hooks on the wall when they were winning championships in 58, not 58, they didn't win, 59, 61. Now they had. But it was small. There were a number of locker rooms there, and I remember locker room 7 was one. I can still see it on the left as you come through the door. That's probably the one you remember, and because that's the one they would have been in. And with the large people, there would be a lot of comfy atmosphere there.
All right, we'll continue with Bob Ryan. We'll talk about today's approach to what we call journalism, and where did it go? Where did the major news outlets go when it comes to an investigation? We're talking about. I got to a point at ESPN where I was burnt out. I was tired. I just didn't. I'd done 3,000 sports centers. I wasn't any good. I didn't get any better. And I know you covered the Celtics, and I don't know if it takes a toll on you. Like, did you know covering it day to day and being so immersed in a team could have a toll on you, or did somebody have to tell you it was taking a toll on you?
The first time I started when I was 23, and by the end of the 6th year, the 1974-75 season, I came home from the finals, which were Golden State and Washington Bullets, and as you know, the great upset.
Rick Barry.
Yeah. Yep. And Jamal Will, Keith Wilkeston, etc. And I said to my wife, I'm going to say something that is going to sound strange, and I'm going to use a verb in this context I had never used before. I need a vacation. And I was 29 years old. I need a vacation. And we went away. And right away, we just booked the trip, and that was that. And because I put so much into it, I took a lot out of me. I cared a lot, and I can't explain it. But yes, I did. The second time I went back, I covered the team. The second time, I was ready to quit after 4 years. And that's in the Bird era when I loved every game in terms of I loved the entertainment value. I loved covering Bird. I loved that team. But the intensity of the beat had been ratcheted up even more. And what I found was that, as much as I love basketball, and I do, there's really only a finite number of types of games. There's only so many games. Your big lead, blow the big lead, close all the way. I call those accordion games. You get a big lead, they come back. You get a big lead, they come back. There's the squeeze, picture a squeeze box thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a half a dozen, maybe 10 games, types total. And once you've seen them all, and then you're worried that you're repeating yourself for your leads.
Yes.
And leads are what matter. The middle takes care of itself. Then you get an ending. But it was hard.
But why'd you care so much?
Because just who I am. I mean, I'm wired to care about sports and that team. If you love basketball, how could you not love those Celtic teams? The first bunch with the Havlicek, Cowens, Nelson, etc., JoJo White, Don Chaney, Silas, one of the great people I've ever known, let alone athletes. And then the second bunch goes without saying. If you love basketball, how could you not love? I don't know. I just I tried real hard to put a lot of emotional energy into it, and I got off the beat in '82, and about 5 months later, I left the paper entirely to go to TV, which was an interesting little hiatus in my career. But I had no idea that was going to be the outcome after I left the beat. So.
If you look at Bird, like looking at him, watching Bird, he can be fascinating. But as far as what he tells you, great sense of humor, sneaky, he can stab, he can jab a little bit there. I didn't get to know him until after he was done, but you were there on a daily basis. At what point did you realize you had his ear, or he
during
had
the
yours?
first year? I first met him. First of all, let's back up. I covered the '79 game against Magic. I was at the Final Four, and he was famously not speaking to the media. The stated reason being he wanted the other players to get their attention. Was a great cover for him. Because, yes, he meant that, but also he didn't have to deal with it. He wasn't ready to deal with it. He was wary of the media. He thought he'd been burned by a feature story talking about his family situation. He didn't like the way it came out, and okay. I meet him at Bob Wolf's house, his agent, to do a story in Us magazine in the summer of 1979. And he made it clear that he would do his media obligations on a daily basis, but that, that'd be it. The media would never get to his house, blah, blah, blah. Okay. By 1988, I'm writing a story in the Globe magazine about the blooming of Larry Bird, about how he loves dealing with the media. He manipulates the media. He uses the media to get to the fans. He enjoys the encounters, and it's all true. It's the way it was. He'd come to like it, as he had come to like a lot of things, because he had lived a relatively sheltered existence, small town, southwest Indiana, Terre Haute, a big small town, protected, and then he got to Boston. Wow, big city. I like this, and then he got to travel the world. So anyway. During that first year, we had a good rapport, and he said some nice things about me in public. Bob Ryan could be a coach. Well, that's crazy, but it was nice, and we always hit it off, and that's that. And it's kind of funny because until very recently, very very recently, like last week, there was a question I had never asked him. I tell people, though we were friends, and I did a book with him, and that book notwithstanding, I had no evidence ever that he had ever read a word I'd written, that it was all based on the personal relationship. And a writer asked him a question, Brian Curtis and Grantland, and he kind of went, yeah, I guess.
At his peak and LeBron's peak.
They're the two, they're my starting forwards all time. Those two. People talk about 3s and 4s. Stop it.
I know.
You got Larry Bird and you got LeBron James. Do you have to worry about LeBron will cover the quicker, faster guy. Larry will cover the other guy. Okay? Or you do it the way the Celtics did it when they had Bird, McHale, and Parrish, and Bird, McHale, and Parrish, which is that McHale automatically covers the most lethal offensive threat among the front court, among the forwards. Parrish will cover the other guy, and Bird will get the least capable guy. Well, even if it's a center, he guarded Tree Rollins. Parrish guarded Kevin Willis. McHale guarded Dominique Wilkins. That's how they did it. On the other side, Wilkins guarded Bird, Willis guarded McHale, and Tree guarded Parrish. But see what I'm saying? Okay. They're the two best, okay? Larry's a better passer. As great as LeBron is, he's still not quite as creative. If the passing scale 1 to 10, Larry's at 9.9. LeBron's probably an 8.7. He's by far the best passer in the league today, by the way. They're the all-time starting forwards. You can't go wrong with either one.
Oh, well, come on.
Well,
I would take Bird at his peak. If I look when he averaged 30 a game, I mean, he was averaging close to a triple-double.
He got to the point quicker than LeBron did. So in that sense, in other words, LeBron's personality got in the way. LeBron is too nice a person. He's too deferential. He's too good a teammate, in a quote unquote. Larry's a good teammate in a lot of ways, but he never let being a good teammate get in the way of taking the big shot, as we know that LeBron did. Until very recently in his career, and this is why his coronation was postponed. Larry didn't have that problem, So in that sense, you're talking me into Larry, and I'll stick with it.
I never understood, because Bird came from a small town. He felt intimidated at Indiana with Bob Knight and left.
He didn't have a word, 1 second exchange with Knight in those 3 weeks. He was intimidated by Indiana.
Yes.
And the culture and the
his roommate had clothes, nice clothes.
Jim Wisman had 85 or 90% of the closet. Larry came with a couple pair of pants, a couple of shirts, a pair of shoes, and $75 that was supposed to last him until Christmas. That's what Larry Bird had.
Yeah.
And he was intimidated right away.
But he
not
had
Knight.
that confidence.
Yeah.
It's weird. You know, his father commits suicide. Yeah. You grow up in a poor place, but somehow he had this confidence level.
I know. Well, who can explain these things? I mean, where the great people come from sometimes is really fascinating. And I think about that about athletes a lot. It was fascinating for Magic when they finally became friends, which was in that famous Converse commercial shoot at Larry's place in 1985. And when Magic Johnson discovered that he grew up almost in a palatial atmosphere compared to Larry Bird, he was completely gobsmacked. He could not believe that this white kid was so much worse off than he is or was or so many other people. I mean, we found that out, and they knew they were going to hit it off because spiritually they were the same player on the court. But Magic was stunned. You know, Larry came from a situation where he had 6 kids and 5 boys, and they never lived in a place big enough to accommodate everybody. They kept moving. So one of the boys was moving with grandma for his senior year in high school, say. And she lived directly across the street from the gym. Directly, I've seen it. Out the door, across the street, into the gym. Larry used to sleep, just love it. He used to take a nap till 7:30. Game was at 8. He used to take a nap till 7:30.
And walk down to the gym.
And walk across the street and go to the gym.
We're talking to Bob Ryan. Journalism now, if you want to call it journalism, it's the slant is mean.
Negative, mean.
Yeah, mean.
Gotcha.
Why?
Why? Because I think it started with talk radio, which is now the #1 format in America. As you know, it's more stations program talk radio than program anything, including country, which was the previous winner. And is it not a truth that when things are going well, people don't exude as well as they complain when things aren't going well? Negativity drives and sells. People get up, complain. And the big thing, the 2 things that strike me about this whole thing. One is we've lost perspective about things that people are going to lose. Sometimes somebody just wins. The other guy loses, has a better day. Baseball has been the big casualty in this. You shouldn't micromanage one baseball game in the middle of July as you micromanage a football game in November. 1/16 versus 1/162. The best baseball team ever history, one season was the 06 Cubs. They were 116. They lost 36. If today, those 36 people would be jumping off, diving into the Lake Michigan and with boots on because they lost those 36. Negativity does sell. The perspective there is sold. And the other thing is this: the blame game. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. It's always who to blame, right? That's the first instinct. Who do we blame? When Matt Adams hit the 3-1 homer off Kershaw. The next day, what was the dialogue? Was it about Matt Adams?
No.
It was about who do we blame? A, Ned Colletti, because of a lousy bullpen. Yep. B, Don Mattingly, because he's a doofus manager in some people's eyes and doesn't know what he's doing. And Kershaw, because he's not living up to a Cy Young reputation. He's blowing. Matt Adams hit a home run off a great pitcher in a big moment. But would you not agree?
Yes.
That's where we are.
Yes. He's Bob Ryan, Boston Globe, The Mothership. The book is Scribe. Good to have you in.
Thanks for having me.
You.
Appreciate it.
All right.